I love that this month I get a wonderful co-host and friend, Jeanine Hauck, to join me as we focus on the aspect of being a mom and an entrepreneur. Jeanine has been my business accountability partner for almost 2 years now. She is a mom to 3 little ones, 6 and under, and is also a coach and entrepreneur. Jeanine has made it her goal to help ambitious women discover and create a life on purpose. Today, Jeanine and I have the privilege of speaking with Michelle Gauthier, a professional life coach who helps busy, overwhelmed women create a more calm and intentional life. Michelle is a single mom of 2 adopted kids and used to be an overwhelmed, busy working mom herself. She quit her successful 20-year corporate career to become a life coach in 2017. Since then, Michelle has helped hundreds of women learn to navigate their careers and home lives with ease. When she's not working, Michelle spends her spare time watching her kids' sporting events, going to burn boot camp, organizing things just for fun, shopping online, and reading self-improvement books. You can check her out at her website, www.michellegauthier.com. Jeanine and I get to pick Michelle's brain on everything from choosing to go it alone to removing what you do from the value you place on yourself. Here's our conversation. I am so happy to be here again today. For this month of August, we are focusing on female entrepreneurs, but specifically in the mom zone. And so I have Jeanine Hauck, my good friend and accountability partner, here with me again. If you want to get to know more about her because you're hearing from her each week in August, go back and listen to our first episode in August. And it is Jeanine and I chatting about her life and her journey and her place in motherhood here too. So I invite you to do that. But today, I am especially excited for us to be able to interview Michelle Gauthier, somebody who I've had an opportunity to work with in the past on a summit that I did, but somebody who, Michelle, you might not know this, but I read every one of her newsletters. I enjoy them so much. So welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for saying that. I really appreciate that. I did not know that.
I think sometimes we put things out there and wonder who is actually paying attention. Well, you can know when you put it out. I'm one of them.
Thank you, Dawn. I'll be thinking of you. Thank you.
So I know that we've heard a little bit about who you are, but I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your actual journey as a mom, as an entrepreneur, a business owner, and that area of time where you're trying to figure out all those things. What did that look like in the beginning?
Yes. Okay. That's a journey for sure. So, first of all, my journey to being a mom, I am a person who always knew that I wanted to be a mom. Like, since I was a little girl, I loved the idea of being a mom. But then when it came time for me to, in life, become a mom, it was not easy for me. We tried for like 7 years to have a baby, did all the infertility things you could possibly do. And then I just realized at one point, okay, this is not the way that I'm going to become a mom. So we ended up adopting both of our kids. At the time, we lived in Texas and we adopted them each as babies. And that, I mean, I could do a whole podcast on that, but suffice to say that becoming a mom was a very intentional choice for me. And it took a lot of work to get there. It takes every mom a lot of work to have a baby, but it took a lot of work to get there. And I really had to keep the faith and just know that I was meant to be a mom and know that it was coming to me in some way, shape, or form. And I got to the point where I was really, I mean, we tried so many things and there was no reason it shouldn't have worked. And so I got to the point that I was a little bit jaded about it. And when we actually got our first child, my son Oliver, we got a call at like 3:30 in the afternoon and we picked him up that night. Like he had already been born, his birth parents had chosen us, and we jumped in the car and went and picked him up. It was a 7-hour drive each way. And we were like, yes, we'll be there. So that was a journey. Just becoming a mom was a journey. And then we adopted our other child, Josie, my daughter, about 3 years later. That seemed easy because I already knew how to have a baby. So by the time we got her and we had like 2 or 3 months warning, that was really so much easier. But the reason why I'm telling that story is because I intentionally wanted to be a mom so badly. And I also loved work. And at the time I was working in a corporate job. And so those two things just started like pulling at me in two different directions. And it was really hard to be balanced and feel like I was doing a good job at both of them. And I was determined to do a really good job at both of them. So I just worked nonstop and tried to do every possible thing for my kids. Like, yes, I can still be the room mom and travel all the time for work. And work till midnight and all those crazy things. So having those 2 things together was really hard for me. I know I'm not the only one, but I can only speak for myself. It was really hard for me.
So in the beginning, obviously you had a partner in your life, I'm
Yes.
assuming. Yes.
Yes, yes, I
And
did, yep.
and so some of that changed too. And I think it's interesting because, I have definitely struggled with the whole business end and family end and how do I make them both work. Janine, you've got 3 kids under 6 and under.
Yeah.
I know that you have had that same issue, but where did it go from, you know, I'm trying to make this work, I'm in the corporate world, I'm now a mom of 2, to I'm starting my own business, and at some point, you were a single mom.
Yes, yes, exactly. So just got to the point when my kids were like probably 8 and 5 or so, where I realized from the outside, my life looks like I have everything I ever wanted. And I think if you would have asked me to make a list, I could have checked every box. Like, I've got a great career, I've got kids, I've got a husband, we live in a nice house, we both have great jobs, all those things. But it just didn't feel right. That's just the only way that I can describe it. It wasn't in line with who I really am. And so all within this space of 1 month, I decided to get separated from my husband, which was not that was not a quick decision. Like, that was a long time coming, years coming probably. Get separated from my husband, decided to quit my corporate job. I had already gone through training as a life coach and I was seeing clients on the side, but I was afraid to jump ships, so to speak, because I was so used to the money that I was making. And I knew that I probably wouldn't make that kind of money right off the bat. Just for the record, I now do make, it took me a few years of being in business, but now I do. But at the time, that was very scary. And we also got a puppy and we sold our house and moved into another house, which I renovated. It was like every change in the book happening all at once. I decided those all at once. And then, it took at least a year for all that to play out. So that was probably the scariest part, was just doing that. But I honestly felt like my soul was giving me no other choice.
There was a lot of ways you could have done that a lot easier, right? Like you could have held on to some of the familiar for a lot longer.
Yes.
So why make all of these changes at once? Like often we see people go through these huge transformations at once. Why do it that way?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, if I had a client, I would ask them that same question, maybe even advise them not to do that, honestly. The thing I had going for me is I just knew, like, I had always told myself I would never be the kind of person who gets divorced. I don't know what I even meant. I'm sorry to my former self and everyone else who's divorced, but that was what I thought. Like, no one in my family is divorced. I loved my husband. I thought we were going to be together forever. So once I was able to let go of that picture and reimagine that I could still be a great mom, even if I was on my own, I could reimagine that I could be successful even in a different business. And I could just, all of a sudden, everything became possible to me. And everything became possible to me when I dropped the idea that everything had to be perfect. It actually never was perfect. And what was exhausting was trying to make it seem like it was. And I just want to say on that, I wasn't like actively deceiving to say, to pretend that my life was something it wasn't, because I was trying to, I didn't have conscious knowledge that I was doing that. But that's what I realized that I was doing. Like, why am I not getting divorced? Because I'm afraid of what other people will think if I get divorced. Why am I not quitting my job? Because I'm so used to other people thinking of me. I have no idea what they were thinking of me, but in my mind, they were thinking, oh, she's this big career girl. She's so successful. She's got that going for her. And I didn't like the idea of being thought of as, at the time, I thought being a life coach was weird. No, I don't anymore. But I thought they're going to think I've chosen this weird woo woo out there job when I've been so successful in like a very traditional kind of way. So once I dropped all of that, everything just felt really possible to me. And I don't want to say that it felt possible and it felt good, because I think if anyone's in the position that I was in where they're thinking about making a change, if you wait for it to feel good, you're never going to do it. You just have to wait for it to feel like, yes, I have this fear. I'm going to take that fear with me, but I can see how this could possibly be successful, even if I don't exactly see the how. and I just went for it.
For the months of July, August, and September, we are focusing on being a woman entrepreneur. I know personally that along my journey, there have been some amazing coaches who have helped me figure out exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted it to look and feel. Sometimes the overwhelm was crazy, and I needed that outside view to help simplify what I needed to focus on and to keep me accountable. My favorite thing about working with a coach is that I get more done in less time. Whether it is learning to manage my time, having step-by-step actions to complete a goal, or having someone to help me overcome limiting beliefs and mindset blocks, the coaches I have worked with have been a huge part of my success. Maybe you're looking for a coach or are curious if it's something you need. Because I believe so highly in helping women on their journey, I want to offer you something special. Each month, from July through September, I'm offering 30-minute strategy calls for free to the first 6 women who book a call with me. Each month, 6 new spots will open, and I hope you will take advantage of this time to get clear on where you are and where you want to go. I love learning about the women in my community, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what you want to create. Book your call by clicking on the link in the show notes, or go to my podcast page on my website, pursueprogress.com/podcast. These 6 spots are first come, first serve, so don't wait. Now, back to the podcast.
And now you've joined the weird club of the life.
Exactly,
So
exactly. I love it. I would like brainstorm things I could call myself besides a life coach. And now that makes me laugh because if you meet me for like 2 seconds, I mean, even if I'm like sitting next to a mom at a baseball game or something, I'll be like, what do you do? I'm a life coach. I talk about it all the time now, but at the time, I don't know. I thought it was weird.
I'm so curious because you said previously, like in the other lifetime of your goal was really perfection, whether you knew it or not. And that was kind of your striving force. So what is it now?
Now I would say it is just feeling all the feelings, like just being here in life and being present. Because again, if you're holding it up to the standard of, I want my life to feel more balanced and I want it to feel really good, it does definitely feel more balanced. But there are days, yesterday was one of those days where it's like, this is too much. I can't do this. I'm so frustrated. And I just have to be able to have that day without kind of shaming it away or pretending that I never get overwhelmed and just see, what is this overwhelm trying to teach me? What can I learn from this? And then start fresh the next day. So my goal is just to be in life now with whatever is happening, whatever feelings are going on, just to be there. And that makes me feel really content.
You mentioned when you were in the beginning of, motherhood, that there was that pull between your corporate job and the, family time and trying to make that balance. And I'm just imagining that now life has shifted radically. You're on your own. You're starting not a new job, but definitely it's what you're depending on now.
Mm.
And you have children that, although babies take a lot of work, the emotional part of kids that are getting older takes a lot of work and time and being present and all of that. So, what was life like then? Was there a balance? Did you know how to do that? What was the struggle then?
Yeah, there definitely was because I think it's human nature. For example, if you get divorced and you jump into another relationship without investigating what happened, you're just going to recreate that same relationship. And so I think what I first started off doing was recreating my corporate job in my own business, as far as saying, well, I need to work this many hours and this is how much money I need to make and this is how I'm going to do it. And I realized because at the beginning, I don't know if you ladies experience the same thing, but at the beginning, you do your marketing and you talk to people about your business, but there's not like 9 hours of work to do when you don't have any clients. When you have 2 clients a week or something, it's just there's not that much to do. And so the adjustment there, it wasn't that I didn't have the time, but I didn't want to allow myself the time because I felt like I should be doing something else. So the balance became not I have too much work to do, but I'm trying to create too much work to do. And one of the reasons why I got divorced was because I wanted to create this environment in my home for my family that it was very peaceful and that it was very predictable and everyone knew that this was our safe not always happy, but like the free place where we can just be ourselves. And so I made that my priority, my number one priority. And both of my kids had a really hard time, as kids do, when their parents get divorced. And so there was a lot, like they both went to counseling. We had lots of conversations. I spent a lot of time with them. So I was really able to focus on that much, much more and just be much more aware of how they were feeling. And I just did at that time, I just didn't work when they were home from school. So I worked when they'd be gone out of the house. And then when they got home, I just didn't work.
How old are your kids now?
They are 15 and 12.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
That is just a completely different stage that I can't even imagine at this point.
Yes, yes. In some ways, it's so much easier than the ages of your kids. In some ways, it's not. There's, there's some pretty complex issues, but yet also you can be like, okay, I'm going out tonight. I'll be home at midnight. Make yourself dinner. I mean, can you imagine doing that?
Yeah. Like you were saying before, you were worried about what everybody was thinking of you. And now you are a single mom, you're running your own business. What are some of the assumptions that come with that? What are some of the assumptions that people have about you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just was actually I wrote an article a couple weeks ago about having a to don't list. And one of the things that I just don't do is think about what other people think about me. Not at all. Like a thought might come into my head, but I immediately release it and let it go because I feel like what is a stereotypical single mom who owns her own business? And, what are people going to think about that? I don't really care. I just want them to see me as me. I'm a mom just like they're a mom. I'm a mom just like other working moms. I feel like I'm not that different. The thing that I have that most other moms who my kids hang around with don't is that it's just me. My ex-husband doesn't live here. So it really is just me and I have them all the time. So when I become friends with some of the other moms, if there's a day where I can like let's say as an example, drive both ways to cheerleading practice for my daughter and take her daughter too, I'll say, "Is there any way that I could drive both ways this week because next week I need to ask you if you could do the same for me." And I'm just really upfront with people. And I feel like I do pull my own weight, so to speak. But I'm just much more likely to be honest and upfront with, I could really use help with this. And it's nice because then they know that they can say that to me too. Like, we're going to be out late tonight. Is there any way my daughter could come and stay at your house? Yeah, that'd be great. That's no problem. So I feel like by being open and honest about areas where I need help, other people do it too.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a couple friends that I have who are single moms who are running businesses. And I constantly think to myself, I feel overwhelmed at times when, a kid gets sick or my husband isn't available to be able to take somebody somewhere. And I also have a meeting and this wasn't supposed to happen like that. What kind of supports did you put in place? What resources did you have in order to help yourself through this?
Yes, that's interesting because I just last week I had to cancel my original podcast interview because I had COVID. And one of my kids also had COVID. And then one of my kids didn't have COVID. So I was like, okay. So basically, no one else can come into the house. I was really sick. My son was kind of sick. And then my daughter was well. So I just thought, how am I going to manage this? But I ended up managing it just like I manage everything else. Just wake up in the morning, see what the situation is. There were a couple days where I felt terrible, and so my son did luckily feel better than I did, but I made sure he got his medication. I ordered food for delivery. I asked a friend to pick up a prescription medication for me that I couldn't have. I didn't have a way to get that delivered. It was funny because I reached out to one friend and she happened to be out of town. And I thought, it's really nice to know that I have several other people who I could ask. Asking for help, I don't think it's anybody's favorite thing to do. But I always just try to put myself in the shoes of if another mom texted me and said, "I'm really sick and I can't leave my house. Can you pick up my prescription?" There's no way that I would ever say no to that. I might have to say I can do it in an hour or whatever, but there's no way I would say no to that. And I would actually feel good that she trusted me and asked me. And so I have to think about that, like being the receiver of that request. So a friend brought me food. Another friend just kept texting me every day and saying, "Is there anything you need?" And I didn't need anything, but it was just nice to know that somebody was there. From the business perspective, I have someone who helps me and works for me. So she picked up more of a load than she normally would. I just texted my clients because that's something that my clients text me and I text them and told them that I was sick and they were all very nice about it. So that's just one example of I didn't have a plan for that, but if I just apply the way that I live my life every day, like I'm just going to see what the deal is today. I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to be open, honest, and ask for help where I need it. And it all worked out just fine.
Listening to what you were talking about before, not worrying about other people's judgments, also means you're a person who doesn't judge those around you. It doesn't put your thoughts and beliefs on other people around you. So that really tears down a lot of the boundaries so that you can ask for help because you're not worried about what they think if you ask. You're creating it's just so admirable, this beautiful community around you for you and your kid.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do think that that's true that I wouldn't have a lot of thoughts if somebody asked me for extra help or I'm also feel like I'm more tuned in to other people and what they might need because I know what I need. So I will sometimes offer if I'm available. It just makes you, if you're in the position where you're always trying to figure things out, I just think you can see it in other people more easily too.
So this might seem like maybe a little bit of a hot topic, but I'm just curious because there have got to be women listening who maybe are in the midst of separating or divorcing, or maybe have thought about it, but they won't do it because of a safety factor or perceived safety factor of if I stay, then I can continue to grow my business. But if I don't, I don't know if I can do it. I don't think it's possible. How am I going to do this on my own? How am I going to juggle everything? What would you say to women that are sitting and listening to this?
That's a very good question. A couple different things on that topic, but the first one is when I think about this and when I'm talking with someone who's in that position, I just wish that I could switch lives with them for like 1 hour because the difference that they will feel when they get there, when they make that choice, if that's the best choice for that family. A lot of times I just always thought, well, now my kids are never going to be okay, but I'm going to just try to make them okay as they can be. It's not true. They're doing great. My business is doing great. I'm doing great. I feel so peaceful and happy in my home. Every night when I go to bed, I go through a list of all the things I'm grateful for. Like I just could not ask for more. And when I was first going through this, if you would have told me that, I would have been like, whatever. I hope that's true, but I can't imagine that that's possibly true. So I would just say to that woman, I am here to tell you that it can be so, so, so much better. And if your intuition and your real authentic self is telling you this is the direction you should go, you should do it. And my personal situation, everyone has different thoughts about money, different ways they've grown up with money, different beliefs in themselves. But my personal situation is that my ex-husband and I made about the same amount of money. So when we got divorced, he doesn't pay me anything and I don't pay him anything. So when I decided to go on my own with my business, I was really, really on my own. And I had evidence that I could be successful in business, but not as an entrepreneur, not as a life coach. I didn't have any proof that that was true. And I had a certain amount of savings that I had saved from my old job. So I did have some money saved up, but I just really worked on the thought and the belief that if I'm going to bet on something, it's going to be me. I don't want to bet on someone else changing or me being happy at some point in the future. I just want to bet on me. I'm the best investment I can think of. And that's really the thought that I focused on and the belief that I held out there and that I was always moving toward. And I still think it all the time.
That's honestly so inspiring. And I think that really starts with having a good self-worthiness and knowing your value. What got you there? Because I know we're so self-deprivating as women. So
Yes.
you get that way of like knowing your value.
Yes, absolutely. The first thing I had to do is I had to separate my enoughness from my perfection, my success in business, all of those things. I was very confident, but if you stripped those all away from me, it was like, who am I then? If I'm not this businesswoman who has a successful career and, married to someone and has this great house and all that stuff. So then who am I? And so it was really getting down to the bare bones of who I really am. And like, yes, I moved to a much smaller house and I'm a single mom, which I used to think of like a life coach, like, oh, people are going to think that's so weird. Now, again, I don't. But it was all these thoughts that I had. And I'm almost glad that I lost by choice in most cases. I lost everything that made me enough in my own mind. And I had to find my enoughness just in being me. So, how I did that is I just worked on that, the belief that I am already enough. I am enough in my first year of business when I'm making, no money and having 2 clients, and when I am living in a house that we were renovating the house, so I had to do, like, dishes in the bathtub for a while, and, sometimes my kids would both be crying because they had a really hard day, like, even in all that mess, I was enough, and I was worthy, and I had value, and I have always had the gift of seeing that value in other people and seeing their potential, and I just had to turn that on myself.
It's really funny because, like, in listening to you say all that, like, it's comical how often we actually put our enoughness in relation to something.
Yeah.
So that we keep pushing that finish line, we keep moving it, and suddenly we're never just quite there because it's in relation.
Yes, exactly, and I feel like anytime you're saying, "I will be blank when," like, "I will be happy when," "I will be enough when," that's always you should always pay attention to that because that means that you're never gonna get there. As soon as you get there, you're gonna make some other, "Okay, well, I'm happy now because I have 1 kid, but now I wanna have 2 kids, and I have 2 kids, but I want them to be in the right school," and it's like, just stop, just be happy right now, or don't even put the pressure to be happy, just be right now. Be where you are.
And I would say it's not that you can have that goal, like, you have your first kid and it's like you want a second one. You can still have that goal and want it and be happy when you do that, but it's about being happy now and also enjoying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think of it as 2 different columns on a piece of paper. Like, I wanna have a child, I wanna have a second child, I want my kids to go to this school. Those are all things that you want in life, and then the feeling of enoughness is separate. They're not tied together, and a lot of times our brain tries to trick us into thinking, "In order to feel this way, I need to accomplish these things," but you can feel that way now, before you've accomplished them, during while you're accomplishing them, after. It's possible, and we just have to remember to separate those 2 things.
It reminds me of one of my friends who always said, like, "Bring out the good china." Not that we necessarily have good china anymore, but you know what I mean? Bring out the good china every day. Use it to eat your breakfast, use it to have your snack, use it
Yes.
to have dinner, because otherwise you're waiting for that day that never comes when the queen's gonna finally show up at your house and you need
Yes,
your
and
good
then you're gonna be
china.
like, "Oh, it's dusty, and I don't even remember where I put it," and yeah, exactly, that's great, I love it.
So, I always ask every guest that comes on the show, which of the 3 Ps they relate to the most. I don't wanna assume, although you've mentioned some things, but I don't wanna
Yeah.
assume. But would you say you are more of a people pleaser, or a perfectionist, or a procrastinator?
Okay, I'm not a procrastinator. My problem is in the opposite direction. I immediately take action. So that one I can cross off. I have some people pleasing and some perfection. I've worked more on the perfection. People pleasing, I've let go of with work too, but I'd say perfection is the one that still comes back. You have those thoughts that you've worked on so much, and then sometimes I'll notice I feel bad about something. And when I look into it, it's always like, I feel like I'm not doing this well enough, or people are going to think whatever. Those are the thoughts that still creep into my head. So I'd say perfectionist is the deepest.
And how does your perfectionism help you in what you do in life?
I think it helps me because I really do truly enjoy doing a good job. So it helps me get started. I'm not afraid to do things. I want them to be the best they can be. What I've had to add to really make it a benefit is to allow for doing B minus work sometimes. Like, this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to choose to make this B minus work. And if I, wrote a email that had a typo in it or something, no one cares. Like, the message is going to get out there. So I just had to add that part on, and then it's really a great trait.
Yeah, yeah. So, I know that you're giving all of the listeners a free gift, which is the Fresh Start morning routine. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about how this is gonna benefit us.
Okay. First of all, it's 10 minutes long. So that I think is a huge benefit, especially if you're a mom business owner. We don't have tons of time usually. So it's something you can do first thing in the morning. I love morning routines. I used to do an hour. I just find this kind of thing fascinating. So I boiled down all the best things I found from all these different morning routines that I've tried to make it a compact, super efficient way to get your day started off on the right foot. And one of the questions that's in there that makes people kind of squirm is, what do I love about myself today? And when people first start using it, they're like, I don't know what to say about that. And then eventually they get into the habit. And that's something that really helps build that self worth that we were talking about, is just realizing that every day there's something I can love about myself.
So I'm going to put this into the show notes. So if you're looking for it, take a look there. I'm also going to put all of Michelle's contact info so that you can get to know her better, get into her community. Like I said, I listen to her, or I read her newsletter every time. So get into her newsletter so that you can get to know her better and hear what's going on. And there's always such good tidbits of information where I feel like, oh, I forget that. I need to apply that. And it's always great to have reminders from people who are also experiencing that and helping us through it on the journey. So what would be a really great place if they, can't make it to the show notes right now, but would like to find you? Where can they connect?
Yes. Well, my podcast is called The Overwhelmed Working Woman. So you could search that. But if you want to just start where everything is, you can go to my website, which is Michelle has two L's, Gauthier, GAUTHIER.com. And that has a link to the podcast, to that morning routine, to sign up for my newsletter. Everything is on my website. Working with me, if you want to work with me one-on-one, it's all there. So that's probably the best place to start.
And Michelle, is there anything else that you would like to say to our listeners today?
I would just say that if you are a single mom or considering becoming a single mom and a business owner, to tell you that it is totally possible. There are days that are hard, but you two women have days that are hard too. It's not like single moms are the only ones who have those. And that if you're looking for building your belief, just search out for evidence for other people who are already doing it, myself included. Send me a message, DM me on Instagram if you need some support. You can borrow my belief until you get yours going. But if you think that you can do it and your intuition is guiding you in that direction, go for it.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here and a part of the podcast. I think this is an area that needs to be talked about. Not everybody is in a relationship and having that type of support as they're building a business. And also, I think for a lot of women who just feel like they're doing it all alone, it's important to understand, yeah, it is possible. So thank you for sharing that.
It is. It absolutely is. And, one thing I didn't say, but just popped into my mind is it's such a great example to your kids, too.
Absolutely. And thanks, Jeanine, for being here to co-host again with me. I so appreciate having you here.
It has been a pleasure. I know the biggest takeaway I have from Michelle is it's enough with the enough. It's time to be enough.
That's right. I love that. That's a great way to say it.